I'm sorry to be the one to break the bad news, people, but it turns out that action movies have been lying to us for years.
I lied.
But fear not, dudes and dudettes. The OSSA gang's here to look out for you and expose those naughty fibs. So without further ado, let's look at all of the ways that action flicks have deceived us. Pew pew pew! Lie number 1. Walking away from explosions. This cliche might revolve around scorching hot flames, but its desired effect is to make the heroes in action movies look super cool. The technique is also used to imply that the character in question caused the explosion, so you can kinda understand why they wouldn't react to a massive explosion if they're expecting it. The unflinching walk trope, or the explosion walk, is overused for a reason. I mean, how great does Wolverine look walking away in slow motion? These scenes can even be romantic, if your idea of a good date is killing bad guys and blowing up their property, that is. Still, it would be nice to see more action movies show how dangerous being so close to an explosion actually is. But I guess walking away in slow-mo is more visually appealing than people being hit with shrapnel and vomiting all over the place. Some movies have also even brought their own spins to this trope in an effort to make their characters seem more badass. Let's take Django Unchained, for example. Jamie Foxx didn't even bother walking away from an explosion that should have really blown him to smithereens. Credit to Kerry Washington for at least covering her ears. The movie wasn't completely irresponsible in its explosion etiquette. That being said, some movies have ribbed this trope. Like that scene in The Other Guys where the heroes walk towards an explosion and deal with the consequences.
I love bombs.
I can't hear!
Even that was unrealistic, but credit to the movie for acknowledging the dangers of explosions. Lie number 2. Being immune to danger. How many times have you walked through the middle of a bar fight, massive riot, or war zone and avoided being struck by a fist, object, or something more severe? Chaos is erupting all around you, but there you are, strolling through the middle of it like it ain't no thing. That just doesn't happen in real life, does it? In the crazy world of action movies, however, people don't need to worry about protecting themselves from the madness surrounding them. One of the best examples happens in Tim Burton's Batman. In this one, Bruce Wayne strolls through a massacre like he's going for a relaxing walk in the park on a Sunday morning. And whatever you do, don't copy this scene from Black Hawk Down if you find yourself in a combat zone. Some movies have realized how ridiculous this trope is, though. Monty Python's Meaning of Life even takes a few seconds to poke fun at it.
Excuse me.
And the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise at least had the decency to kill off Cutler for trying it, but not until he'd spent a few seconds walking through an exploding ship completely unscathed. Now that we've covered the dangers of acting recklessly out in the open, let's look at how action movies also lie about shielding. Lie number 3. Cars and bullets. Let's be real. If anyone finds themselves in the middle of a shootout, they're gonna take cover behind the closest thing they can find. If you just so happen to be near a car at the time, diving behind a vehicle is a tad better than being out in open range. This is especially true in action flicks, where it's common for characters to tuck themselves behind cars to protect themselves from gun-wielding maniacs. These are throwaway scenes in many action-packed thrill rides, but some films have actually based their entire premise around this idea. For example, in Downrange, a group of youngsters must rely on their vehicle to protect them from a sniper who's targeting them for practice. It's pretty terrifying. There's no denying that it's an effective technique for creating high-stakes drama, but cars aren't equipped to handle bullets for the most part. While some steel machines could offer some protection for a while, it would only be a matter of time until a bullet penetrated through the surface and caused problems. Plus, if the bad guy really knew what he was doing, he could probably spray the car and hit his target. That's a dark thought, and we should move on from it quickly. But we shouldn't downplay the dangers of firearms, nor should we encourage you to get into fights, which brings us to lie number 4. taking on gangs single-handedly. This one isn't impossible per se, but you need to be the greatest fighter in the history of humankind to pull it off. And when you consider that most bad guys know how to handle themselves in a throwdown, it's unrealistic to expect anyone to defeat an entire gang by themselves. However, most action movies are about heroes overcoming the odds, and what better way to tell an underdog story than by having a lone wolf go up against armies of enemies on their lonesome? Remember that time the Bride took on the entire Crazy 88's gang in Kill Bill? It's one of the most viscerally thrilling fight scenes you're ever likely to see. But it ain't gonna play out like that in an actual sword fight between a vengeful heroine and a group of sword-wielding Yakuza members. Plus, have you noticed how these scenes tend to see the bad guys stand off and let their friends do the work before they step up? The Night Comes for Us is guilty of that, but it gets a pass for being an absolute masterpiece of its genre. The best fight scenes need some room to breathe and let the stars show off their skills. But in reality, an entire gang could strike the brave hero all at once and get the job done much quicker. Of course, some action movies force us to suspend our disbelief and roll with it. Take Die Hard. Bruce Willis spends that entire movie crawling through air vents and snuffing out the terrorists one by one.
Come out to the coast, we'll get together, have a few laughs.
Sneaking through an air duct is probably wiser than storming through the front doors and going bananas, but it's probably just best to avoid gang fights altogether. Line number 5. Silencers. Some action movies favor stealth missions over gung-ho insanity, and that's where gun silencers come into play. Silencers in movies have led people to believe that it's possible to shoot someone dead without making a noticeable sound, which makes them perfect accessories for those casual shootouts in public spaces while everyone else is going about their business. Silencers are part of the fabric of action cinema, and they're arguably one of the most believable gun gadgets in the medium. Furthermore, it's possible to add suppressors to real guns in order to make them quieter, but they're still pretty loud at the end of the day. Here's how that aforementioned scene would sound if they used real suppressors instead of the more convenient movie ones. The government will probably invent some fancy silent guns eventually, but for now, they're a lie. But if there is one thing that action movies like doing, it's making guns seem better than they are. Line number 6. Guns not running out of ammo. The frequent ignorance of the number of bullets being fired from guns without stopping for a reload is one of the oldest tricks in the book. At the same time, reloading a gun is never going to be more exciting than firing one, so you can't blame action flicks for pretending that weapons have unlimited ammo. Every once in a while, the heroes will have to reload so that they can engage in some banter with each other. Other times, they'll only have one bullet left for dramatic effect.
I know what you're thinking. Did he fire 6 shots or only 5? Well, to tell you the truth, in all this excitement, I've kind of lost track myself.
That being said, your average big shootout in an action movie involves dozens, if not hundreds, of bullets being fired because the weapons seem to have bottomless magazines. In reality, revolvers and shotguns can fire between 5 and 8 shots. Semi-automatics, meanwhile, have magazines that hold up to 15 shots at the best of times. In movies like Commando, however, the belts on machine guns seem to get longer instead of depleting as the hero goes on the rampage. And that's just one example of many films with the same mentality. Still, there's only so much stuff you can cram into a movie, and being realistic when it comes to guns would take away from the good stuff. Therefore, we can forgive movies for lying for the sake of providing exhilarating entertainment. If you liked this video, be sure to check out our breakdown of how rom-coms are also dishonest.